Greetings viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're back on the 2019 Forester that has 100,000 miles on it. We're going to be replacing the driver front CV axle. We're going to be replacing the axle seal on both the driver's side and the passenger side. It'd be a shame to put an axle in it and not replace that seal and have it to start leaking after replacing it for the $15 or $16 that the seal cost. We're going to go ahead and replace that. We've got a new air filter, we got a new Serpentine belt, going to install those as well. So let's go ahead and get into the repairs, get into the service, and get this car back to the customer. All right guys, let's start off with the Serpentine belt. That is a part number 23780AA200. Here is our new belt. Now, these new vehicles are so much easier to service with their auto belt tensioner. So 17mm socket here. Put her on there, turn her, the way the arrow says, take you a little 5 or 4mm shank bolt, put it in the hole there, and now your tensioner is retracted. You don't have to fight it to get your belt on and off. Simply pop your belt off, put your new belt on, pull the bolt back out, and your tensioner pops into place. So let's go ahead and fish this old belt out of here. And a lot of you asked in the comments on the last video about the condition of this belt and why I said it needed to be replaced. So one thing I noted on that video were the grooves on the belt. So here is the old belt and here is the new belt. Hopefully it's coming through. You can see how much deeper the grooves are on this belt and how much more traction and how shallow the grooves are on this belt. This belt is getting ready to start squealing, making noise. It's, like I said, probably original, 100,000 mile, 3-year-old. It's definitely time to be replaced. And also, similar to the life of the timing belts, you can see how much the print has faded on the old belt in comparison to the new belt, another indicator of wear and age. So we just slip this here around the crankshaft pulley. We'll bring it up and over the idler pulley, back down to the water pump pulley, around the water pump pulley, up to the AC compressor, down and around the alternator, and back around our automatic belt tensioner. Now, when you have the belt off, I had another question about the tensioners and the idlers. Just spin them by hand, make sure they're not making any crazy grinding noises, anything like that. If they run smooth and quiet, most likely you're fine. Don't need to worry about replacing those components. So again, around the crank, alternator, back around the auto tensioner. Make sure you are in all your grooves. Off a tooth down here on the water pump pulley. All right, that ought to give us enough room, enough slack to get around that belt tensioner. Again, check, make sure you're in all your grooves. Take your ratchet or breaker bar, pull up on that, pull your bolt back out, let it go, and you're all done. Next, we'll move on to the air filter. That's a 16546 AA16A. Whole lot better looking than the original filter that's in their box right now. We'll go ahead and disconnect our mass air sensor. We'll pop the little tab there for the wiring harness. Tuck that out of the way. Take an 8mm nut driver here, loosen up our hose clamp. Pull the intake hose back, pop our clips. And slide the air box and mass air sensor up. Pull our old filter out. And for those of you in the last video that said the air filter wasn't that bad, compare it to a new one. So also it wasn't even in there correctly. So let's go ahead and put it in there. Up. Filter towards the front of the box, gasket towards the rear. Go ahead and drop the back part of our air box into place. Line your tabs up, rotate the box forward, pop your clips, put your intake hose back on, easy as that. Tighten up your 8mm. Just like so. Mass air sensor, plug it back in, pop the retainer into the side of the air box. All done, simple as that. All right, starting off, I'm gonna take off the CV axle nut. Next, we'll take out our 14mm pinch bolt here for our lower ball joint. Then we'll take a pry bar and separate the ball joint from the steering knuckle. Just like so. Now with the lower control arm free and the ball joint free, we can turn the steering knuckle and guide the axle out. Just like so. And what we gotta do is crawl underneath and pop it out of the front differential. Now, for the next part of the procedure, Subaru recommends removing this front pipe of the exhaust and removing this shield slash structural support for the front suspension. But pretty sure we'll be able to get our pry bar in here anyway with this in place and pop out that axle without having to remove those components. And just like so, the axle is free. There's just a little C-clip in there, clip in there. You have to knock loose inside of the front differential. Now that that's done, we can slide that axle right out. Just be careful in doing so if you plan to reuse your axle seal, as you may nick it pulling it out. Sorry for the shaky cam. Camera was a little too close to the action. Always be sure to compare the new and old parts side by side. Looks like we're good here. So guys, got the new axle seal in. It's a little cramped with the exhaust and everything over here to show you that replacement, but I'll show you on the passenger side, the side that's actually leaking. Now we can go ahead and insert our new axle. All right, so now what we gotta do is stick the new axle back up into the front differential. Good idea to put a little bit of fresh gear oil on the inside lip of the seal and on the end of the axle. Subaru has a special insertion tool to help you from nicking that seal going in, but if you're very careful and line it up through the center, you shouldn't have any issues. All right, once you get it inserted and lined up, what we're gonna do is take the axle and give it a little shove just to push past that circlip and lock it into the front differential. Before we go shoving on it, we wanna get under here, put eyes on it, make sure everything is lined up correctly. And just like that, we heard it snap into place and fully seat. Again, look underneath, make sure it is fully seated in that front differential before putting it in the steering knuckle. And we are in there good and snug. Give it a little pull, make sure it doesn't come back out. Make sure that circlip is secure. All right, now we can just take our other end of the axle, feed it back through the center of our steering knuckle, and pop our bottom ball joint back into place. So make sure the axle comes through the center of the hub. Make sure it's splined in correctly. Pull that control arm down, line up that ball joint, and let it pop up into place. Put your pinch bolt back in and torque it to specification. All right, so now we grab a new CV axle nut, 902170049. And torque it to 220 Newton meters. You want to put something in your brake rotor there to keep it from turning while you're torquing this. Now it is crucial that you torque this accurately because it does set the preload on your wheel bearing. If you don't torque it too loose, wheel bearing can tear itself apart. Too tight, it'll run hot and tear itself apart. So make sure you torque that. Once your nut is torqued, you want to take a punch or chisel and stake that axle nut to the axle. Just like that, you want to pin that into the groove in the end of the axle. It is a mechanical lock to keep that nut from backing off. Bingo bammo. And don't forget to retorque the lower ball joint pinch bolt. You need to tighten that to 50 Newton meters. All right, now we've got the passenger side taken apart just the same. Axle nut off, got the pinch bolt out, pulled it out down here. Now, before we pull it out of the front differential back there, what we're gonna wanna do is go ahead and clean up the gear oil, spray it, brake parts cleaner, a brush, something to agitate it. Get that cleaned up now while the axle's in there. That way you don't have to worry about spraying anything into the open differential or getting any contamination in there. For this side, we're gonna go ahead and remove that lower subframe brace here. There are 6 14mm headed bolts, 3 at the back, 3 at the front. Very easy to see, very easy to take out of the way. I'm not gonna show you that just because I'm running out of light out here and I don't have much room to get under there and film. All right guys, got the brace out of the way. There is a better, clearer shot of that gear oil leak from this axle seal. So like I said, we're gonna go ahead and spray cleaner on here, clean this all up. We'll pop the axle out just like we did on the other side, and we'll come back to show you removing that seal and installing the new one. All right, so far from perfect, but a lot cleaner than it was just a few minutes ago. We're gonna head and pop that axle out, clean a little bit more very carefully, and go ahead and knock out the old seal. All right, guys, old axle is out of there. As you see, there's still a little bit to clean up, but it's not terrible. To remove the axle seal, we're just gonna grab the very inside lip up with the same pry bar we used to pop the axle out and just gently pop it out. You wanna be very careful doing this. You don't want to accidentally scratch the inside bore where the seal sits. You scratch that, it's gonna leak no matter what you do. So just the inside lip. Be very careful when doing that with the pry bar. All right, guys, far from perfect, but sometimes you can't get it perfect. That's much better than how it rolled in here. All right, guys, so like I said, we're gonna take our little pry bar here and just catch the very inside lip of the seal. A couple bumps on the handle. Again, just the very edge. You don't want to scratch that bore. And your axle seal will pop out easy as that. Now, to install this, you are gonna need a seal driver, seal installer tool to do it correctly and not mess anything up. Guys, I'm real sorry. I just cannot give you a good shot of this. It is too cramped in here, but basically you just slide the tool over the seal in there and then tap the back end here with a hammer until it's flushly seated. Not much more than that, not very complex, just very hard to show in the space constraints here. So once the seal is in, just take your finger and run around the outside lip and make sure it is flush to that aluminum housing. And if it's flush all the way around and smooth all the way around, you are good to go. Put your axle back into place. All right, guys and gals, home stretch now. Fighting the darkness. I really hate this time of year when it gets dark early. But all we gotta do now that we've got our axle slid back in and pushed it in till it popped or clicked into place like we did on the other side, we'll go ahead and feed it back through to our steering knuckle here. Again, make sure your splines line up. Once your splines are lined up, line your ball joint up, and pop it into place. Just like so. And a brand new CV axle nut. You do not reuse those. Like so. And your pinch bolt for the ball joint. Don't want to forget that. You hit a bump and you're going to have a bad time. So remember, torque that to 50 Newton meters. Torque this to 220 Newton meters. Don't forget to stake it. Put your wheels and tires on and we are done. So guys, got the Forester back together and night called us. But we're ready to give it back to the customer. So quick, super sharp left-hand turn. This is when it was making that horrible noise before. Nice and quiet now. No more axle popping and going on. We got those axle seals in and I got that air filter and serpentine belt. So we are done with this job. Now, guys, I ran out of time on filming this video. I had to have the car back to the customer. I've had it since Monday. It took forever to get parts. Parts are a nightmare to get right now, especially parts from Japan. The axle had to come from Japan. So it took, you know, I mean, the axles come from Japan, but this one didn't come directly from Japan. It came from across the country, but, you know, stock is very low on parts. So with the auto start stop issue, I went ahead and installed an auto start stop eliminator. The one I installed was from Auto Stop Start Eliminator. Now, this isn't a sponsorship. I don't endorse this company. It's just the one that I found that was widely known and easy to get. This is the one the customer brought to me, and I installed for you. Installed for them. If you want to see the installation on it, it's super simple. They've got it on their website. It's literally, you pop off the trim for this piece here. There's two 8mm screws in here. The whole eyesight shroud comes down. You unplug one pigtail at the eyesight cameras. You plug the little module up as a piggyback in between the two, zip tie it in place, put it back up. That's it. And then your auto start stop will stay wherever you put it. So if you turn it on, it'll constantly be on. If you turn it off, it'll constantly be off. You don't have to keep pushing it every time you start your vehicle. The issue with that rear driver side passenger brain mush, the passenger door on the driver's side, the issue I found there was the child safety lock was on. Don't know what was hanging up other than that, but I was able to reach in through the door jamb, open the child safety lock mechanism up, unlock it, sprayed some white lithium grease in the latch assembly in the hinges. I've opened it probably 100 times now from the inside and the outside, no issues there. So we got our popping and creaking gone. We got our issue with the auto start stop gone. I'm pretty sure that was just the weak battery. Now they got the new battery in there. The auto start stop system is functioning correctly. It will restart from a auto stop. And that door, I don't know, I guess it was a fluke, but it looks like the child safety lock was an issue. The other issue was the radio presets getting wiped out after a day or two. And that is a radio update. And I don't have a way really to update this radio. But if we go in through settings and we go into the system information, I believe this is the factory software for this radio from 2019. It never has been updated by a Subaru dealership, so Subaru's got to update this radio for this customer to get their presets to continue to save. So other than that, we're done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it was a little jumbled up, rushed, and not as detailed as normal, but there you go. See you guys in the next one.